Detroit, late 1960s. A city once hailed as the heartbeat of American industry. The air still hummed with the promise of the American dream. Streets were alive with the hustle and bustle of a thriving metropolis. Cars rolled off assembly lines, symbols of prosperity and freedom. Each vehicle a testament to human ingenuity and hard work. But beneath the gleaming chrome, a rot was setting in. The shine of success was beginning to tarnish. The auto industry, the lifeblood of the city, began to sputter. Jobs vanished, streets emptied. The hum of machinery was replaced by an eerie silence. The Motor City was grinding to a halt, and in its wake a storm was brewing. A storm that would change the face of Detroit forever. A storm of desperation, of anger, of hunger. The people, once filled with hope, now faced a grim reality. A storm that would leave its mark on Detroit for decades to come. The factories stood silent, their once bustling interiors now echoing with emptiness. Giants of steel and glass now looming like skeletal ghosts, monuments to a bygone era of industrial might. Each shuttered window, a lost job, a shattered dream. The dreams of countless families, now just memories. The men who once walked these streets with purpose, now shuffled with defeat, their spirits crushed by the weight of economic collapse. Their hands, calloused from years of honest labor, now clenched in frustration. The pride of their work replaced by the sting of betrayal. The American dream had become a nightmare. The promise of prosperity turned into a daily struggle for survival. And in the shadows of this crumbling city, a new breed of entrepreneur emerged. Men who thrived in the chaos, men who saw opportunity in despair. They capitalized on the city's downfall, turning misery into profit. Men who dealt in a different kind of commodity drugs. They offered a fleeting escape from the harsh realities of unemployment, poverty, and hopelessness. They offered escape from the harsh realities of unemployment, poverty, and hopelessness. But their product came with a heavy price. A price paid in blood, in addiction, in the very soul of Detroit. A price paid in blood, in addiction, in the very soul of Detroit. The city was bleeding, and its wounds were deep. The streets, once filled with the roar of engines, now echoed with the screech of tires and the pop of gunfire. Violence became a common soundtrack. A darkness was settling over Detroit. A darkness that would consume everything in its path. The city was losing its light. The city was on the brink, teetering on the edge of an abyss. Its future uncertain, its past a haunting reminder of what once was. The 1970s arrived, not with a bang, but with a whimper. The city of Detroit, once a beacon of industrial prowess and economic strength, found itself at the precipice of a dark and uncertain future. The auto industry's decline accelerated, leaving a gaping hole in Detroit's economy. Factories that once buzzed with activity now stood silent, their machinery rusting away, a stark reminder of the city's lost glory. Unemployment soared, poverty tightened its grip. Families who had once enjoyed the fruits of steady employment now faced the harsh reality of joblessness and financial instability. The once proud city was on its knees, vulnerable and desperate. Buildings that had once symbolized progress and prosperity now stood as crumbling relics of a bygone era. Into this vacuum stepped those who thrived on chaos, gangs, drug dealers, and kingpins. They saw opportunity in the city's despair, exploiting the vulnerable and establishing their own reign of terror. The streets, once safe havens for families and children, transformed into battlegrounds. Innocent lives were caught in the crossfire, and fear became a constant companion for many residents. Turf wars erupted, fueled by the insatiable demand for heroin, cocaine, and crack. The drug trade flourished, bringing with it a wave of violence and addiction that further eroded the fabric of the community. Young men, robbed of opportunity and hope, turned to crime as a means of survival. With few prospects for legitimate employment, they found themselves drawn into the dangerous world of gangs and illegal activities. They became foot soldiers in a deadly game, their lives cheap, their futures bleak. The promise of quick money and a sense of belonging lured them into a cycle of violence and despair. The police, overwhelmed and outgunned, fought a losing battle. Their resources stretched thin. They struggled to maintain order in a city teetering on the edge of chaos. Corruption seeped into the ranks, blurring the lines between law enforcement and the underworld. Trust in the police eroded as stories of bribery and collusion surfaced, further undermining the city's stability. Judges and politicians looked the other way, their pockets lined with dirty money. The very institutions meant to protect and serve the public were compromised, leaving citizens feeling abandoned and betrayed. Detroit was spiraling out of control, its fate hanging by a thread. The sense of community that had once been the city's strength was now fractured, replaced by a pervasive sense of hopelessness. The American dream, once so tangible, now seemed like a cruel illusion. For many, the promise of a better life had slipped through their fingers, replaced by the harsh reality of survival in a city on the brink. The city that symbolized American industrial might had become a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of what happens when hope dies and despair takes root. Detroit's story was a warning to other cities, a testament to the fragility of progress. The streets of Detroit, once paved with gold, were now stained with blood and littered with broken dreams. The echoes of a prosperous past were drowned out by the cries of a struggling present. The Motor City was broken, and its people were paying the price. Yet, amidst the despair, there remained a flicker of resilience, a stubborn determination to rebuild and reclaim the city's lost glory. In the heart of Detroit's chaos, Henry Marzette reigned supreme. A ruthless kingpin with an iron fist, he controlled a vast drug empire that stretched across the city. His word was law, his enforcers feared throughout the underworld. Marzette was the embodiment of Detroit's descent into darkness, a symbol of the city's lost innocence. From his fortified mansion in the suburbs, Marzette orchestrated his operations with cold efficiency. His network of dealers and runners spanned the city, pushing heroin and cocaine onto the streets. He amassed a fortune, built on the backs of addicts and fueled by the desperation of his community. But Marzette's empire was built on violence. He ruled through fear and intimidation, eliminating rivals with ruthless efficiency. His enforcers, known as the Wrecking Crew, were notorious for their brutality. They operated with impunity, leaving a trail of blood and terror in their wake. Marzette's rise to power mirrored Detroit's downfall. As the city crumbled, he thrived, preying on its weaknesses and exploiting its despair. He represented the dark side of the American dream, where greed and violence trumped opportunity and hope. Under his reign, Detroit became a city under siege, held hostage by a criminal enterprise that seemed untouchable. As Marzette tightened his grip on Detroit, a new generation of gangsters emerged, eager for a piece of the deadly pie. The city, already reeling from economic decline and social unrest, became a breeding ground for young, ambitious criminals. Young Boys Incorporated, a loose affiliation of teenage drug dealers, rose from the ashes of the city's collapse. They were not just a gang, they were a symbol of the desperation and determination that permeated the streets of Detroit. They were ruthless, ambitious, and fueled by the allure of fast money and street cred. The promise of quick riches and respect drew them in, and they were willing to do whatever it took to climb the ranks. These weren't hardened criminals, not yet. They were still in their formative years, learning the ropes of the criminal underworld. They were kids, barely old enough to shave, who had witnessed the decline of their city firsthand. The decay of their surroundings mirrored the erosion of their innocence. They had seen their fathers lose jobs, their families struggle, their neighborhoods crumble. The once thriving industrial heart of America had become a wasteland, and they were left to navigate its ruins. The drug game offered them a way out, a chance to escape the cycle of poverty and despair that had trapped generations. It was a dangerous path, but for many, it seemed like the only option. Young Boys Incorporated operated with a brazen disregard for authority. They saw the police not as protectors, but as obstacles to their success. They ran their corners like CEOs, overseeing vast distribution networks that stretched across Detroit. Their operations were sophisticated, their strategies calculated. They armed themselves with automatic weapons, their fingers always on the trigger. The streets became a battleground, and they were always ready for a fight. Violence was their currency, fear their marketing tool. Intimidation and brutality were used to maintain control and expand their territory. These young men, robbed of their childhoods by circumstance, became both victims and perpetrators of Detroit's tragedy. They were caught in a vicious cycle where survival often meant becoming the very thing they feared. They were products of their environment, shaped by the same forces that had brought the city to its knees. The systemic failures that led to Detroit's decline also forged the identities of these young gangsters. Their story is a cautionary tale, a reminder of the devastating consequences of societal neglect and the seductive allure of the streets. It underscores the urgent need for intervention and support to break the cycle of crime and poverty that continues to plague urban America.